Hey guys, happy Friday. Go ahead and open up this set of notes, which is in the assignment for you to go through and fill in. They'll match up perfectly with these notes because they're carbon copied just with things for you guys to write. I'm going to go through things, I'm going to talk a little bit, and then you guys can obviously just hit pause because you're in control of the class right now. And the goal is that we're going to get through the information. You'll have a complete set of notes, and then I can build on this on Monday. So I appreciate you guys being focused and getting all this together. So here we start out in 5.4 with the light reaction. That's the first part of photosynthesis, right? So when we say the light reaction, it's a sunlight dependent reaction. This is going to take place in the thylakoid. And what's really happening is that the light energy is actually going to get trapped by the chlorophyll to make ATP. This is what we refer to as photophosphorylation. That's like a really fancy word. We're not going to hit that level right now. But the important part is some of that energy, some of those photons coming from the sunlight, going to set up some ATP. At the same time, the water is going to be split. So H2O is going to be split, and that's going to give us some oxygen, right? That's the oxygen that we're breathing from plants. And we're going to get hydrogen ions. Now, these free hydrogen ions are going to reduce or basically attach to NADP plus to create NADPH. So when we refer to NADPH as an energy carrying molecule, you can see that if we split off the hydrogen and now you have an ion sitting there, like imagine it's sitting there shaking, it needs to stabilize, so it clink attaches to the NADP plus, and now it's holding a little bit of energy in there. So it's going to be important. We'll come back to that in a little bit. But in the notes, at least, chloroplasts capture the sunlight in two ways. Right? It either excites the chlorophyll or the pigment, or it splits the water molecules. And by the way, the splitting of the water molecules is called photolysis, right? Photolysis. So it's bringing back that theme of to lyse, to break. So photolysis. Then down here, the electrons from the chlorophyll in the first phase are carried by molecules called NADPH, right? Not NADP plus, but NADPH, that's that hydrogen in there, into the second phase. And we're going to see that when these molecules actually leave the thylakoid and go out to the stroma. That's where the Calvin cycle is going to take place. All right, so let's take a look at that. All right, everything that we just talked about is here in this diagram. So we're going to fill in this diagram. You're going to see it in three different stages. So here we see the light reaction. So the sunlight, you see it's hitting the thylakoid, right? Or that full stack is your grana or granum. Water's going to come in. Oxygen's going to be coming out. And then you see off to the side, you're going to get some ATP and NADPH. Now, that ATP, that NADPH, is now floating in the stroma. And this sets us up for the Calvin cycle. So, a little shout out, Melvin Calvin, right? Nobel Prize for his work on understanding the process. And you know it's a pretty big deal when they name a process after you. So Calvin cycle, Melvin Calvin. All right, let's break this down. So now we get to the Calvin cycle, or the light independent reaction, meaning that we don't need energy now to split molecules per se, But instead, we actually have ATP and NADPH that are ready to help do some carbon fixation. And in order to do carbon fixation, we need the other reactant for photosynthesis. We need carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, right, all around, is captured and then is actually going to be changed by the addition of hydrogen to form a carbohydrate. Remember C6H12O6. So it's not just carbon, it's not just hydrogen, right? We need that molecule to be built. Right? So the incorporation of the carbon dioxide, so the building in there into the organic compound is known as carbon fixation. So that's where you're seeing this term, and you're also seeing, right? Second, ATP and NADPH provide energy to combine the fixed carbons to make sugars. Only autotrophs can build low energy inorganic carbon dioxide into high energy organic molecules like glucose. I'll take a second to clarify that there are other steps that we're leaving out. It really complicates this whole process, and I think for our high school understanding, we don't really need to get into that level of detail. But if you do go on to the collegiate level, by all means, you're going to see that next level when we talk about phosphorylated, and we talk about G3P, all that good stuff. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I'd be happy to give you additional reading to understand that. But for the rest of us that are just like, I'm just trying to pass biology, take a look at the Calvin cycle. All right, so carbon dioxide comes in, it's going to cycle around. That ATP and NADPH are now going to contribute the energy and the hydrogen needed to fix or to lock in the carbon dioxide into a glucose, thus making chemical energy. And to put the two processes together inside of a chloroplast, you see this diagram. So you already know I love diagrams. This would be a perfect one to have you label and drop in information as to what's what. All right, but there's a little more detail, right? We're not completely done. So down at the bottom, it's saying that the stomata on the underside of leaves take in carbon dioxide and release water and oxygen. So bring in carbon dioxide. That's why talking to your plants is always a good thing. You're all putting out carbon dioxide. And the plant is going to open and close the stomata by these things called guard cells to release water when they have a surplus. They'll close up when it's really, really hot and dry and water is scarce, right? So it's regulating the amount of water that's going to be released, and it's also the port where oxygen is going to be released. So that gives you a quick overview as to how photosynthesis takes place and how we end up with ATP. When you scroll down to the bottom, your summary really gives you the bullet points of what you need to walk away from this chapter knowing. First, you got the chemical formula, 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus sunlight. Sorry, that's missing in there. Yields glucose plus oxygen. Autotrophs make food through photosynthesis using energy from the sun. Right, now let's be specific. Those are photoautotrophs, not chemoautotrophs. Right, photosynthesis takes place in the chloroplast, light reaction in the thylakoid, the Calvin cycle in the stroma, and then looking at the energy carrying molecules, your ATP and the NADPH, capturing sunlight, converting it into chemical energy. That's the big theme. So I think you guys have listened to me enough. I'm going to encourage you, if you need to fill in any other portions. I know this last line you definitely need. Final product of Calvin's cycle is glucose. And take the last few minutes to watch the second video. It's a good overview and puts a visualization. So do that, and then the rest of the period is yours. All right. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you guys on Monday.